Going live. You're live. All right. What's up? I'm going to call you guys the Corn Crazed Army because I've seen some people call it that in the last few weeks, and it's not lame or anything. So what's happening, guys? I had a long travel day today, but I told you this is an important week, not only because there have been so many different things that have transpired, and they've all actually been pretty positive for our program and for us as a fan base, but because we're playing a massive, massive game against a historical rival, one of the best rivalries in college football, even though it's not a yearly thing anymore. And we were able to get my friend John Johnston from Corn Nation, who has absolutely blown up with his reactions these last couple weeks because of the failures by the previous coach. And I just think this is going to be a really fun live stream, and we're going to do some call-ins. So if you guys want to join the call-in show, before I bring in John, before we do anything, I'm going to give you guys the quick instructions. If you're in the Discord group, you click on the waiting room on the left side where you can see all the different channels. Click waiting room. Once you're in there, I'll drag some of you in, and you can talk directly to myself or John or Denon, and we're going to answer your questions. We're going to hear your thoughts, and I think that's just a good way for us to have a conversation because there's a lot to talk about. There's been a lot going on. So with all of that said, I'd like to bring in my friend John from Corn Nation. John,
hi.
Do you hear me? There he is.
Yes.
So, John,
how you doing?
I'm doing great. And you've had some really, really entertaining videos over the last, I guess it's been 2 weeks. Did you take I guess you did take my advice when I told you need to stick to the emotional stuff. And it actually ended up working out for you. You got picked up by Barstool. That was a massive one. And then this last video, you had go over 40K views.
Somebody who
you're sounding pretty humble.
The Jim Rome show someplace. I guess I'm supposed to be humble. I'm still trying to calm down from shoving supper down my throat. But and then the shock of you saying our former coach, and that's referring to Scott Frost. I think it's still. I guess it really hasn't set in yet, or maybe. We've talked about it a little bit. Monday night, I did a show with my college buddy Todd, but I guess until I see him not on the sidelines, maybe it's still just, kind of like a fantasy. I mean, the guy was around over 4 years, so.
What did it for me was today when they put out the clips of Mickey Joseph at practice. First off, let me tell you my feedback on the first clip I saw after practice and why I was so excited to see it. Did you watch them, by the way, John?
No, I did not.
Okay, the first thing to note, Mickey Joseph has this loving aura about him, and the players look like they want to dap him up, hug him. They're loving towards him, which is something that people have said Scott Frost might not have had with his players, which is bizarre because even you mentioned it. At UCF, he was kind of sharing in the love with the players, and he was sharing in the good energy. And at Nebraska, stone cold, almost frustrated, and didn't look like he was happy, I guess is the right word, which is unfortunate. The other thing to note, which made me ecstatic, and I could be wrong, but I'm very confident in what I'm about to say. That's the only reason I'm saying it. I didn't see a single black shirt in the video. Now, maybe there's a black shirt that I didn't see because they didn't pan to him, but what it seems like, Mickey Joseph has a giant ball sack and said, screw it. We're taking these away because they didn't earn it. And this previous coaching regime said, we're just going to let everybody get a participation trophy. And that's obviously not acceptable because participation trophies breed mediocrity, as we've seen. So no more black shirts. And I got super hyped up off that. What are your thoughts?
My thought is this is a brand new season. I mean, we can kind of pretend that the 3 games didn't happen, but they did. Everybody else will remind us, but we can just pretend it's a new season and we're starting fresh. And I guess we're going to see what Mickey Joseph can do as a head coach with Nebraska football. I don't think we have a bad team. I don't think we have like the defense. I think we have players. I just think that, the not live tackling. I guess I've said this already publicly. I just think that Scott Frost, there were trust issues. There was dysfunction. There was, I'm missing the other word, but people just didn't feel like, he talked about doing all the little details. Well, he didn't do all the little details. So when you have that happen in a team environment, things go to hell. I mean, that's true for any workplace, and that's what that is a workplace. If you don't trust your boss, or you don't have faith in your boss, or your boss can't motivate you, or your boss is a jerk, then you're not going to perform as well as you would otherwise, no matter how competent you are. So I'm hoping Mickey Joseph can at least pull something out of this season.
Well, one thing that I'm going to ask you, and I don't want you to answer yet, because I'm going to take a caller in a second here. We just lost one in the waiting room. But okay, there are two questions I had. The first one is, what's a revised record prediction with this new Mickey Joseph-led team? Because like you said, there's a lot of talent. They can still win football games, and they're not playing Ohio State this year. They're playing Michigan, but they're not playing outside of that anybody crazy in the West. You got Wisconsin, who got taken down, Illinois, who's lost already. I mean, the West is definitely a conference where you can catch up with some wins, even though they're 1-3. I'm going to wait until later to answer that. I want to take a caller right now.
Okay.
And if you're cool with that, John, I'll just get their thoughts. And if they have questions for you or I, we can elaborate from there. Sound good? All right. We've got Zonder. Let's see if he picks up. Denon, how do I bring in Zonder? I'm trying to figure this out, guys. Sorry, this is my first time doing this from my laptop and not my normal studio setup. There we go. Zonder, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. How you doing?
We're doing great. How are you?
I'm doing good.
So what is your thought, or what is your question? Because you got a legend in John Johnston in the chat right now.
Well, for me, it's how is Mickey gonna really pull these guys together? Because it's, it can go either one of two ways. We can either win games and miraculously make it to a bowl game somehow, or we can just move on to a new coach. But for me, I have huge hopes for Mickey Joseph. I like his character. I think if we keep him, we might be able to salvage some of the recruiting class. But I'm not really too sure about how the recruiting stuff goes. So that's more of your gig.
Yeah, so here's my thought really quick on Mickey, and you talked about pulling the team together. I think when a player plays for a coach, he fights harder, and he's going to try and focus to win for that guy, right? Yeah. And for whatever reason, players didn't do that under Scott Frost. It's confirmed. You just watch how they played. I've actually now talked to some people who worked for Scott Frost, and they said they never saw it. They said that the players, elite players, an example would be a Garrett Nelson, who's a homegrown guy, would play for the university, but not for the coach. And when you don't play for your coach, you're not giving everything you've got. Mickey, I think, has the relationship that can pull an extra bit of juice out of some of these guys, and they're going to go that much harder. And when you go that much harder, it's the little things that you're focused on, right? You're not fumbling the ball. You're not having stupid penalties because you're so locked in and you want to win for that coach. You're listening to what he actually has to say because he's been accountable with his word. And yeah, that's my takeaway. I think Mickey's going to pull more out of him. John, what's your thought?
Well, it's like I said, I think you tell them that this is a brand new season. Forget everything that just happened. Put it out of your mind. We're going to start from zero, and we're going to play football, and we're going to put the right guys on the field. I wouldn't be surprised if we see lineup changes because, one of the rumors I heard was that guys were on the field because Frost wanted them there, not necessarily because they were the best players, but you just start that way. You say, I'm a brand new coach. We're going to do things my way now. And if you want to go forward, it's really kind of about this. I mean, you get everybody together in a room and you say something like, okay, do you guys really want to be here? Because if you don't want to be here, we'll figure out how to honor your scholarship for the rest of the season. But there's the door, because we don't need anybody who doesn't want to be here. And then you say, we're starting over. There's a brand new season. Our goal would be to win a bowl game, win enough games to get to a bowl game. From what we've seen on the field so far, that looks pretty impossible. But, who can tell what's going to happen?
There's still talent there.
My friend Todd went to the game last week, and he said that, at the end of the game, it was just complete desolation. I mean, people were in shock and, complete silence. And when Scott Frost was fired, his first reaction was, I'm want to go to the Oklahoma game now. He planned to go to the Oklahoma game, and he was like, "Nah, I don't want to even go." Well, now I'm happy to go because he and I were in the 80s together. In 1982, I have a long story about trying to tear down a goalpost and almost dying, but whatever. But those were the great Oklahoma-Nebraska games in those years, and to be at the Oklahoma game this weekend, I mean, that would be pretty cool.
I like it. So I hope Zonder, I hope that answers the question as best we can. Obviously, John and I don't know the exact answer, but this is our best that we can come up with for now.
We can only speculate, right?
Exactly. But thanks for calling in, and I hope you're back soon.
All right, thank you.
All right, we're going to bring in another caller. But, John, before we bring in another caller, I had a question pop up that I wanted to get an answer from you on. Here it is. So, Living in Omaha asked really quickly, how many games does Mickey have to win to earn the job? You can just throw out a number.
Ooh.
Doesn't need to be an elaborate explanation.
6. I'd say get to a bowl
6.
game. And I don't know. I don't think it matters who Nebraska hires as their next head coach. Somebody's going to be unhappy about it somewhere. So, I mean,
it's absolutely true.
But I think a minimum is he needs to get to a bowl game.
Fair. I think that's the same in my head as well. We've got the Cubster in. Can you hear me? You could take yourself off mute, brother.
Hello.
Hey. How we doing?
Good. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can.
All right, good. Yes, this is Jordan Culverson, the one that you've been talking to, the Tennessee fan.
Yeah, we got a real Tennessee fan in our chat now.
Yes. But basically, what I was talking about with you is that Tennessee and Nebraska have very similar histories, similar number of national titles, similar number of conference titles, around the same amount of wins, and same kind of situation. Basically, the whole state supports the team, and they both fell off after 2001. But now Tennessee seems like they're finally getting it together, and it seemed like, with Scott Frost, when they got him originally, I was like, finally they might come back and be what they should be, because it makes too much sense. He's from Lincoln. He won him a national title. I look at that kind of like how we looked at Philip Fulmer, because it was the same thing. He was from Tennessee. He played there in the 60s, helped us win a national title in 67, won us a national title as a coach in 98. And then, he fell off, and it was like I cried when he left. And I was so excited when he came back as the athletic director. And of course, he screwed that up with Jeremy Pruitt. But, we all make mistakes. But even with all that and the sanctions that we were facing possibly with Jeremy Pruitt, thank God, they got rid of everybody, and that kind of prevented that from happening. That kind of turned things around. But, yeah, it's great to be on here finally.
Wait a minute. You said you have the same number of national titles as Nebraska. Are those fake SEC titles you guys just claimed from like 1934 when there was no AP poll and some guy made up some formula?
The ones that Tennessee claims are 1938, 1940, 1950, 1951, 1967, and then 1998.
Okay. All right. So none of them AP poll started in 1936.
Okay. Well, I don't know what was going on back in the mid 30s. I wasn't even alive then.
So here's my thought on the Tennessee situation with correlating to Nebraska. They went through their trauma with different head coaches, and they weren't able to get back as soon as they had hoped, right? And they tested it out, and they finally found a guy who was an outsider. I think a former OU quarterback, with Josh Heupel.
Yep.
Actually, Scott Frost's predecessor at UCF.
Last national title winning Oklahoma quarterback, by the way.
Great point. So maybe Nebraska is their next one up is going to be the one that gets them over the hump. Because I'm going to say this right now, and I told you this over DM last week. I slammed Tennessee over Pitt, and I think Tennessee's in for a big year. I don't know how big, because they got a tough schedule, obviously, and winning the SEC is tough. But I think they can do some damage and get to 9 wins, no problem, and have a really good season.
9
at
wins
least
would be
for
disappointing.
Okay, listen, for a realistic fan, I think
Good.
9 wins would be
Wow.
good.
No,
9 wins at Tennessee this year would be a good season, I think. And as a Tennessee
it
fan,
would
I
be pretty
understand what you're
good.
saying because there's so much hype. But it's
Well,
tough,
I'm
This is
looking at it from game by game. This week, we're favored by 50 to beat Akron, take care of business. I'm going to be up there in Knoxville. But then next week we get Florida, and yes, Florida will be back and forth, but I think with us being the home team, I think we'll take care of business on that. That's 4-0. Then we get a bye week, and then we play at LSU. Yes, I know Baton Rouge is a tough place, especially if it's a night game and they're drunk. I get it. But have you seen what's been going on with LSU recently? Their top
no,
wide
I trust
receiver.
me.
Okay, well,
They're a
their top.
mess. They're a mess. You
Yes,
can
they're
beat
a
them.
hot
You can
mess
beat
right
them, no
now.
problem.
Yes, so that's 5-0. And then we get Alabama in. Yes, I do think we're not going to beat Alabama. I mean, let's be real. I mean, who knows? I mean, it's in Knoxville. Who knows? But I think that we will drop that game. That's 5-1. Then the next week we get
All right. Well,
Tennessee.
we're gonna end up seeing what Tennessee's capable of. But for now, I'm gonna say 9 wins would be positive for Tennessee, and I would be happy as a Tennessee fan with 9. And maybe we build from there.
Oh yeah. I mean, we got a really good
when you
recruiting
guys
class
lose a
coming
game,
next
what do you
week.
do?
Say again.
When you guys lose a game, what do you do? I mean, what do you do do you blow stuff up, shoot the washer dryer in your front yard?
Well, we sit around, drink, and curse until the next week, and we
They throw
complain.
shit on the field.
Now that was just the Ole Miss game. That was a one-time thing. But other than that, that never happened. I'm sure in the
Listen,
history of Nebraska, I'm sure there, probably some old games with Oklahoma or the old Colorado rivalry for you old timers that remember that big-time rivalry back in the day. I'm sure there were some instances where probably fans wanted to go out and shoot the refs. It happens with
I'm
every
sure
family.
there were.
Like, for
I'm
example,
sure there were.
with LSU is a prime example. I've heard something about when they played Auburn one time, they actually chased the Auburn bus out of the stadium. Now that's insane.
Jesus.
But
Yeah, I mean the SEC is different.
It is, and
But
I mean, like I said, I'm very pumped up, and I'm rooting for Nebraska to be Oklahoma because one of my best friends, he lives in Norman. He's a diehard Sooner fan, and he's like, man, we're gonna kick Nebraska's ass and stuff. I'm like, hey, it's in Lincoln. Who knows? And now they got a new coach there. Maybe.
I hope you can rub it in his face after this weekend. That's my goal.
Yes. He's like, man,
But
we always dominated Nebraska.
Hey, always is a strong statement. Always a strong statement. They have only got us one time in the last 10 years. Let's be clear. But I'm going to take another caller. Thank you for coming on, and I'll talk to you in a minute.
Best luck y'all against Oklahoma, man.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. I've got a bunch of questions in here, John, and I want to answer one really quick before we hop into our next caller. Let's see here. First off, thank you, Kevin. I think it was Kevin who sent me a $10 super chat. Didn't say thank you for that, so thank you for that. We love super chats over here, guys. Put a lot of work into this channel, and it goes a long way in supporting us. Okay. Man, all these questions I feel like we started to answer already. Okay, here's a good one for you, John. Question: how does getting a coach like Aranda or Whittingham work? Do we have to buy out their existing contract and offer them from there? If so, does anybody know what his buyout would be? So, John, would we have to pay for Dave Aranda's buyout? Is that how it works?
Yeah, you have to pay basically the remainder of their contract since you're taking them away. You have to pay the school to take them.
If Nebraska goes for a coach who requires $8 million a year, does Nebraska have the funds to pay the $8 million, to pay off Scott Frost, and to pay the buyout of one of these big-time coaches?
Yeah. I mean, let's face this.
Okay.
I keep saying this on my channel. Ryan Day in the offseason said publicly it will cost $13 million a year in nil deals to build a championship team. So if you're not going to come up with $13 million, and that's not the coach, that's the players. If you're not going to come up with $13 million, you're not going to be competing in a championship, and that means getting into the playoff, being one of the 4 teams right now and top teams later. So, I mean, if you don't have the boosters in line and the guys to pay for all this stuff, we're going to be Minnesota, basically.
Fair enough.
I mean,
that's a simple explanation and as simple as it gets.
I talked to some of my Minnesota guys, and they were like, yeah, Minnesota wouldn't have bought him off for $7.5 million. And they wouldn't have. They would have never done that. So, yeah, I think Nebraska has enough money and enough boosters in line to do whatever they want, honestly. So I don't know what Aranda's buying.
I'm bringing another caller in. Yeah, who knows? I don't think Fickell's an option, but I'm not going to elaborate on that. But I do not think Fickell is an option for Nebraska this season. I do not think he would come. Okay, I'm going to bring another caller in. We've got Nuon, who's been waiting. And also, if you guys want to join, if you're in the Discord, the waiting room is on the left-hand side of the Discord channel. You can drag yourself in there just by clicking the waiting room, and then I pull people from the waiting room into our live call. It's that easy. Just be in the Discord group. Nuon, can you hear us? You got to unmute yourself. Nuon. I'm going to have to move on. 3, 2, 1. He wasn't ready. Okay, we've got Hefe. Hefe 35. Do you hear me? Hefe?
How you doing?
Hey, how's it going?
Good. So my question is kind of a 2-part question. So, obviously I hope Mickey Joseph takes this role and runs with it. But if he doesn't and he's not successful and they move on to another coach, my first question is, do you think Trev Alberts will protect him a little bit with that next staff and maybe try and keep him, because he is such a valuable recruiter and he has recruited some athletes to this team, definitely on the wide receiver role. Second, do you think Scott Frost, when he took this job, because he was out at UCF and it's a little bit more of a baseline recruiting location, that maybe he didn't really think how much traveling he would actually do when he got here, and the grind that Trev Alberts was taking, the grind that it would take for him to go, because the rumors are he didn't like to recruit and he wouldn't make phone calls. So do you think maybe that was, a step above him, where he really didn't realize the job at hand when it comes to trying to recruit to Nebraska?
So I'll answer these and then I'll let John go after. In regards to Mickey, I think the next coach who comes in is going to get a lot of advice from the current staff at Nebraska on who the elite coaches are on the staff and who they would want to keep around. I don't think that Trev or any of the, I don't even know, administrators, I guess you can call them, are the chancellor or president or anybody like that is going to tell this coach how they need to do their job. Because if you're hiring a guy for $8 million a year, that dude is an expert. He knows what he wants to do. He has a definitive plan. And he's going to stick to it. If it so happens that he's searching for a candidate for a certain position, he might look at Mickey or say a Bill Bush and decide to bring them on. And some of these coaches, when they come in, if they aren't familiar with the territory, they might want to keep a Mickey because Mickey has more experience with these recruits, with the culture and the state, and they can actually teach them some things. One example I'll point to was what is the dude's name? Something Williams, who was the corner coach under Mike Riley, who recruited a ton of the guys from the Calabrasca movement. If you guys remember, he was the face of that. He's like a young dude, light-skinned black guy, was a great recruiter, like one of the top guys in the country. He is such a good coach that he got to USC. Lincoln Riley came over, and Lincoln Riley only kept him. Got rid of the entire staff, but kept that one guy. Not even Deontay Williams, something. Point is, Mickey is that type of guy where I think a lot of coaches who came in would want to find a role for Mickey on their staff. If it didn't work out, it wouldn't be a deal breaker because these new coaches are so smart. They're going to find a way to make it work with their guys. But yeah, I think Mickey probably has a role carved out because he is one of the hottest coaches in the country and has really good ties to Nebraska, especially with this new role he has. Second question was about, remind me.
Just Scott Frost being over his head when he got here.
I don't know that Scott Frost was not interested in traveling or anything like that. That's just so much speculation. So I have no clue. But I do think that he wasn't aware of how hard his job would be when he got here. I think that the UCF job was a little bit different. It might have been a little bit lighter transitioning from Oregon to UCF, where you have enough resources to get done what you've got to get done. You've already got a ton of talent. It's easy to recruit talent in South Florida. When you get to Nebraska, probably is a lot more work. But again, it's all speculation, so I'm not sure about any of that. But I think it very well could be that the job was so much more difficult and required a lot more work than UCF or Oregon did. And that could have been a contributor to why he failed. John, I think you might answer that question better than I can.
He played under Osborne. He was part of the whole Osborne era. You know what I mean? And Tom Osborne didn't have a life ever. And when somebody gives you $5 million a year to do a job or whatever Scott Frost was making, I mean, CEOs that get paid that much a year, they don't get a life either. So, whether he was, this was too much work or I didn't like to travel this much, he had to know that ahead of time. He'd already lived that life. Unless he was kidding himself. I think probably one of the things he probably overlooked was when Osborne was there, he set up everything. And one of those things was the Unity Council. They started that in the early 90s, and it was a big key to them jumping into that era where they just beat the hell out of everybody. And he didn't have a Unity Council under Riley, and he had to build that. And I think he just thought that would happen, when really that was a shit ton of work that you have to do between you, and it was Jack Stark, the psychologist at Nebraska, that was heavy in implementing that for Osborne. You have to have all those people involved, and then the players to pull that off. And maybe he thought that infrastructure was already there, but that would be pretty naive. So I don't know. I imagine 5-10 years from now, we'll finally figure out what the hell happened to him. I don't think anything's.
It might take some time.
We've seen Mike Severe make a short video about some of the things and bits here and there, but probably that stuff isn't going to come out for a while until this wound heals.
Fair enough. I've got a quick question that just popped up that I'd like you to answer, John.
Please, guys.
Why is nobody talking about Ed Orgeron as a head coaching option?
Well, because Ed Orgeron kind of just destroyed himself at LSU. Here's the thing. Was it? I can't remember. Was it Ole Miss or Mississippi State? And then he was the coach there. Bruce Feldman wrote a book called Meat Market about his time in that coaching spree and just how hard he was on everybody. Then he went to USC, became a coach kind of for a while. He didn't really fit there because there's and people in LA don't talk like that. And then he went to LSU and won a national title. And he fell apart. I think he got divorced. He started bringing his girlfriends and his girlfriends' kids to practice, and they paid him. Maybe you've heard of this happening with somebody, but they paid him a crap load of money to go away. So I think Ed just he reached the pinnacle. He reached the pinnacle of coaching, and he's probably done. Actually.
Yeah, he's kind of admitted that. Yeah, it was $17 million he got to leave. He kind of boasts about it, which is interesting. He had a lot of personal issues with girls, and it was a lot of things going on at LSU when he was the coach, bringing people to practice that shouldn't have been there. Just very bizarre. Anyway, Ed Orgeron is probably never going to coach again in college football. The way it sounds in his interviews, the way he's talking, he's retired and he's enjoying retirement. He had a good run. He understands that his time came to an end. And one thing I think it's important people know, there are kind of cycles in this coaching world, and there's a weird community. And what's his name? Coach Jason Brown talked about this on my show last week. There's this world where if you get into it and you can fight your way up the ranks, you'll be able to make a lot of money because you're now in that coaching world. But once you get kicked out of it, it's really hard to fight back in. Bo Pelini was out of it. Never got back into Division I coaching. Got stuck at Youngstown State. Ed Orgeron is out. So, yeah, he's not a guy who I expect ever to coach again, and especially not going to coach at Nebraska or be a D-line coach or take any sort of demotion after he won a national championship only 3 years ago. Bassman, thank you for the $2 super chat, and thank you for becoming a member. Guys, if you become a member of this channel, you can use the emojis in the chat. I'm not sure if you guys ever noticed you can use the emojis. I'm going to fire off a couple right now so you can see them. But yeah, thank you guys for being members of the channel. Support goes a long way. I'm going to bring another caller in right now. We got Magical Pony, just because I like the name. Pony, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Pony. There we go.
Yes, sir.
How you doing?
Pretty good.
So you're on with John Johnston. You got a question for him?
Well, anyways, I just want to start this off by saying howdy from Texas.
Nice.
Where at?
Where in Texas?
Just south of Houston. I'm actually a Fremont native myself.
Okay.
So, anyways, I was just kind of curious. So, let's say Nebraska does decide to retain Mickey as head coach towards the end of the season. Are there any coaches in specific you could see him retaining, or like who could he possibly bring in?
Not Mike Dawson.
You're saying Mike
He's the
Dawson's
first
gone.
to
Okay,
go.
so you're saying if Mickey stays, who could he potentially retain? That's what your question is?
Yeah, who could he potentially retain, and if he chooses not to retain anybody, who could you foresee him bringing in? More
All right,
specifically on the defense.
Okay, so I don't know the answer to who could he bring in, and I'm not going to say who would be flushed out because I want positive energy here as much as possible. One who could be retained would potentially be Travis Fisher. I use the word potentially because I'm not sure I would put anyone on the list. If you had a clean slate and could reset, I might as well say reset. But that's as far as I'm going to go. I don't want to get too deep into it and bring on the bad energy. This coaching staff is going to win now. So,
Sure.
John, maybe you got a thought on that.
Well, I think that the rest of the coaching staff is probably auditioning for their jobs too. I mean, most people are like, fire Eric Chenander. Well, okay. We don't know if Eric Chenander was doing what his boss told him to, because that's, for some reason, whatever's going on. And we're going to see what happens the rest of the season. So I guess I don't really have a problem with Mark Whipple. Most of these coaches, when you become a head coach, you kind of like, well, this is the defense I want to run, and this is the offense you want to run, and then you pattern everything around that. And we really don't have any idea of what Mickey Joseph wants to do with those things. So I guess we're gonna find out this year what's gonna happen.
For sure.
I like the positive
That's
energy.
the best answer. Yeah, I think that's the best answer we can give you right now because we're still hoping that Mickey Joseph and this staff turns it around and brings Nebraska to the Big Ten West Championship or the Big Ten Championship and a Big Ten West title.
Not with
Fingers
Mike
That's
crossed.
where I'm at.
Everything Mike Dawson touches is garbage.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of Mike Dawson. I can confirm.
He was doing special teams last year.
Yeah, I don't know that Mike Dawson's the right guy. But outside of that, the rest of the staff, let's get them all rolling. But thank you for calling in, Tony.
Thank you.
All right, we got another caller coming. We have got Beans 2501. Can you hear me? You are muted.
Oh, hello. I got you guys here.
How you doing?
Good. How are you guys?
We had Beans
We're
on
doing
the
great.
last call in.
Oh, no, it's my
Did we?
first.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, you just got a familiar voice, sir.
Oh, all right. I guess I have an opinion to dispute you guys, and then I got a question. Personally, I think that Dave Aranda should be the number one guy going into the coaching search. I just think, he's got things working at Baylor. He's got a good defense, what we need, good run game. They're in playoff contention. My personal opinion, I think that should be the number one guy we go after. And then my question is, how many wins do you think Mickey Joseph has to get to for him to stay head coach?
So Dave Aranda, I think, is a no-brainer top 3 pick right now. He has SEC and Big Ten defensive coordinator experience, was successful at both schools. He turned around a Baylor program that was struggling after Matt Rule left. He had a fantastic season last year. He's going to have a good year this year. It's going to be tough for them to get to 9 wins, but they can do it. They just lost to BYU in a heartbreaker. Wouldn't say they're in playoff contention anymore, but because of that one. But I believe Dave Aranda is probably going to be in the top 3. A lot of people talk about Jim Leonard. He doesn't have enough experience. Dave Aranda is going to be someone who Nebraska is able to poach because he's in the Big 12. And as we all know, the Big 12 is going downhill fast. So, yeah, I'm going to have to ride with you on the Dave Aranda pick as the top one. John?
But I like him. I've been paying attention to more to my guys at Coronation because I have a small army in there. Well, they have good ideas. So Dave Aranda seems to be a lot of their choice. He's probably the top guy. I don't think that. I don't know if he'd come to Nebraska, but certainly he should be up there as a guy that they're looking at. With regards to wins, I think we said earlier, get to a bowl game minimum for Mickey Joseph.
So that's 5 more wins, which would be, let's call it Indiana, just so everyone on the chat knows, because there are a lot of questions about that. Mickey Joseph has to beat Indiana. He has to beat Rutgers. He also has to beat Purdue. He then has to beat, Iowa, and then either Michigan, Oklahoma, or Wisconsin. So that's a tough task at hand, especially with all of this momentum that we've lost. Because there was a lot of momentum in this offseason, right? We had the offseason national championship locked up, pretty much confirmed offseason national champions after a 3-9 year. And all of that just got drained out of us after that Northwestern game, and drained even more after this last weekend. So if he can fight back and get us to a bowl game, man, there's going to be so much talk about whether or not he deserves the job. And there will be a lot of people who want to say, no, we need the flashy $8 million a year guy. And then there are going to be a lot of people who are saying, nope, we need another guy who understands Nebraska, who's not going to take as much money, and who we can trust to get this ship turned around. So very interesting conversations coming up if he does get to that bowl game. I hope that answers it for you, Beans.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks for coming on. All right, I've got another caller. Birdie, can you hear me? You are muted.
I hear you.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. How's it going?
We're doing great. I'm just here with John Johnson. We're talking about Nebraska football ahead of the Oklahoma game because this is an exciting week over in Lincoln, if you didn't know already.
Oh, yeah, it sure is. I wish I could make it out to the game, but I got to run sound for a wedding, so I'm going to be cheering from my home. I got a question for you. Are you taking the over or under on 2 people with signs at the Big Noon kickoff asking Urban Myers to come coach for Nebraska?
Does Big Noon kickoff do signs?
I don't know if they do.
The over. The over. I would take the over. There's going to be like 10 people with signs asking Urban Meyer to come to Nebraska.
I think there could be a chant. There might be a chant full on. We want Urban.
Man, I hope there isn't. I want to go to the game just so I can have a sign that says "Don't hire Meyer," but that's just my personal.
Really? Wow. Okay, so if I could get, I made a joke in my video yesterday about if I could sacrifice my right nut for a thing, then I would do it. But I already sacrificed it for 8 wins. I would sacrifice my right ball for Urban Meyer. That is the one guy who is the number one. I mean, right now, the number one non-coaching coach, the guy who doesn't have a job. He's a championship caliber dude who can do it anywhere. He's done it in non-Power 5, SEC, Big 10. Keep in mind, the SEC and the Big 10 is not the Pac-12. It is not the Big 12. It is not the ACC. Those are the 2 power conferences of America. He took an Ohio State team that was a perennial almost. They were never the hot team. And now Ohio State is beastly. Ohio State is on the same level as Clemson and Bama almost. So, man, my heart flutters when you say the name Urban Meyer. But unfortunately, you're going to get your wish. I'm not getting mine. Nebraska fans would be lucky to get a coach of that caliber to come through Lincoln and turn this ship around. But it's not happening, so it is what it is. But thank you for the take, and I like the over for John for Urban signs.
Hey,
I think that will happen.
Birdie, I had to run sound at a wedding during last year's Oklahoma game, so I'm feeling it for you, bud. One of my best friends got married during the Oklahoma game.
You know what? I would my hands have fallen off. I can't run anything. Somebody has to help me pee. You know what I mean? I would be like, I've had an aneurysm.
Hey, listen, all wedding venues are the cheapest they'll be all year in the state of Nebraska on Saturday.
That's true. That's true. All right.
Even now.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Birdie. We'll talk to you soon.
Take care.
Hey, speaking of,
guys,
Big Noon, I want to see corn craze signs. I want to see giant Connor heads floating in the crowd behind them.
Yeah.
Big old bald, shiny Connor heads. Take your screenshots and go get them printed.
Signs. By the time game day gets back to Lincoln, we need some corn craze signs there. That's for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
And just so all you know, just because I want Urban Meyer, it doesn't make me a scumbag guy. I just prioritize wins over everything else. All right? I'm trying to win. We're bringing another caller. We've got Bones. Bones, can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm good. You?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Well, you know, this Meyer thing's got me all kinds of turned up.
Okay.
No. Hard no. The guy comes in for 3 or 4 years, turns it around for a short bit. No good. We won't get a Power 5 coach. We won't. They'll pull it from the cloud. It'll come from anywhere other than where you're thinking it's going to come from. I really kind of hope Mickey Joseph works out. But the real questions that I have on this is, how do you think the fan support has changed? Particularly for the older crowd. Now, I'm 80s, 90s guy. I remember what that was like. And I feel like our identity isn't there, so the fan support isn't there. And I'm with people saying that you got to play for the coach.
I think that, you know what, the sellout streak's still intact, even if people want to make fun of boosters buying tickets and giving them to kids. More people still show up for Nebraska games than any other place in the nation. I think that, you know, firing Scott Frost, the people were starting to gravitate toward apathy. When Trev Alberts stood up and said this football team needs a new voice, he wasn't just talking about the football team. I think he was talking about Husker Nation as well. I think everybody'd seen enough. And I said on one of our podcasts a few weeks ago, when this thing turns, it will all turn together. And what I meant by that was, you know, 2007 Oklahoma State game, Oklahoma State was ahead 38-0. Everyone knew it was the end of Bill Callahan. People left the stadium at halftime, and you knew that era was done. Saturday night, when we lost to Georgia Southern, you knew that was the end. It was just, you know, I hate to use a war reference, but I mean, when the Japanese lost the Battle of Midway, that war was over. They just had to fight the rest of it out. And I was surprised he got fired that quick. But I think the fan base now will be fine. I think you're going to have those people that are going to be, you know, we're always going to be a fan base where you have those people that are going to be kind of against, you know, angry. We're never going to be completely united. And maybe that's healthy. You know, different voices and different opinions isn't so bad all the time. It's when we start getting angry and stop listening to each other that it becomes a problem. That's I think the fan base will be.
We heard
good.
boos.
We need to win.
And in the 80s and 90s, we didn't boo our team.
Well, this is the thing.
We cheered.
The culture's changed, right? And fans around the country are booing. It's becoming more culturally acceptable. And even though it's probably not right, I wouldn't condone it. I think other schools do it. People are more bold now. People do stuff for social media. They're a little bit extra. Maybe the boos aren't that the fans aren't as diehard or locked in. The boos could actually be that they're so passionate and so upset that they've got to get it out in some way. And they're just channeling that energy to the wrong avenue with booing, right?
That feeds into the fact that they don't remember what we were. So to them, like, I'm 20 years older than, well, I'm right in between you two. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
So that puts me in. Yeah, that puts me in the space where I remember success and I remember how we built that success, and I never remember hearing boos for our own team. So I think what you're saying feeds into that exactly, where there's a separation of where somebody knew what success was and they don't know what success is. So how do you bring that gap together? And I think the answer is playing for the coach.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. I mean, when
playing for the
players say
coach
they
turns
play
into
for
wins.
the fans, they're lying 98% of the time. If they don't play for their team, play for the guys on their team, and play for the, you know what I mean? That's why we didn't hear a lot about Scott Frost's problems, because the Husker family is a family. It's not. I'm not in that family. You know, people like Adam Carricker are part of that family. Jay Foreman, Jason Peter. You know, Scott Frost is part of that family. And if you know anything about families, you know the line. I can talk shit about my family, but if you do it, there's some, stuff going to go on. And that's why a lot of those guys are not going to break rank, and they're not going to crap on Scott Frost, no matter what happens. But those guys playing together and those guys staying together, I think it is an important factor that everybody overlooks this, because when you talk to guys that played for other Division I FBS football teams, not every school has that. Minnesota doesn't have that family environment for their players over the decades. They don't. And if you go around to other programs, you'll find that that only exists probably at the blue blood level. So, or in special circumstances. So, yeah, you're right. They need to play for each other. They need to play for their coach. And then if the fans are happy, well, then yay.
Here's a good comment for you, Bones. The Bassman dropped. Better play will bring on cheers. Nobody can cry about fans being frustrated and booing. Fan equals a fanatic. The fans just care, which is great, hence all the sellouts. So I think if you got a passionate fan base and they're booing, maybe that does mean they actually do care. And it's not that they're booing because they're bad fans or anything like that.
And I don't think that they're bad fans. Maybe I verbalize that improperly, but I don't think they're bad fans. I think they don't have a connection to what built. We weren't great in the 50s. We weren't great in the 60s. We were pretty good in the 70s. We were pretty good in the 80s. We were really great in the 90s. But that took 30 years to build. Now we're getting on to 30 years from when we had success. So I'm not saying don't boo when it's inappropriate. I'm saying it was new for me to feel that feeling.
Yeah. No, I get it. And what's interesting is a lot of these fans aren't connected with what you're talking about. If you look at the student section, they're probably a lot of the ones who are booing. The student section, they would have been born in like 2003 or something.
Yeah.
2004. So all they've grown up with is
failure. Really, other than a few years with Sue and that company, that was a fun time actually for us, because we were like, oh, we're on the right road, we're doing the right things, we're making the right moves. And then Bo was a little bit not Osborne would be the way I would put it, and it just kind of imploded and went down this rabbit hole that we're at now. And I really thought, I'm with you guys, I thought Scott was going to be able to come in and at least right the ship a little bit, and we didn't see it over 5 seasons. Well, 4 and whatever amount you want to put on that, 4.2. And I really feel like if we come together, and you got to play for the coach. It's Dr. Tom Osborne. We didn't call him Coach Osborne. We called him Dr. Tom. And I think if we can get somebody in there that puts all those pieces together and sets up that unity group and makes all of these things happen, that'll be a good deal.
Well, hopefully all those things can come together then, because we need something to get people back engaged and not booing, like you're saying. But yeah, I don't know the answer, unfortunately.
Well, let's hope Mickey knows.
Hopefully he does.
True.
And I hope Mickey's the right guy. Just so we're all clear, I want Mickey to win out and be the guy. I think it would be fantastic to see Mickey Joseph be the head coach of Nebraska. So it all starts this weekend. It all starts Saturday. We'll see how they play Saturday, and then we can go from there, game by game.
Big Red.
Go Big Red. Thanks for coming on, Bones.
Yeah.
All right, I've got another caller in here. We've got Nick. Can you hear me, Nick?
Yeah, I got you.
How we doing?
Good. How you doing, Connor?
I'm great. I've got John from Coronation with me.
Yeah, John, thanks for joining us tonight. It's always good to have you.
You're welcome.
Hey, so here's my thing. So I have kind of 2 things. One's a quick comment. The other one is more like about Mickey Joseph. So I'm like just about everybody else. Like I love Mickey, and I would love for him to get the nod and take over. I feel as though he's kind of doesn't have a fair shake though. Like, if I'm being honest, like the defense is so bad. I'm not even sure like the moves that he makes to try and make it better is enough to save us once we hit the Big Ten conference games. And so I kind of feel like it's not a real fair evaluation of would Mickey Joseph be a good head coach for Nebraska. So that's my biggest concern for Mickey is I want him to succeed. It's difficult because he doesn't have the head coaching experience to draw from, but he has been a part of a lot of very successful programs. So I don't know. It's one of those things where it's like I'm almost on the fence of like, do we gamble and just give this guy, you know, a 2-3 year contract just to try him out? Or are we so desperate that we got to? Because I honestly don't. I mean, I hope he proves me wrong.
That the second answer, the second thing you said.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, I hope he proves me wrong, but I just feel like this defense is so unfixable at this point. So that's my
I'll
concern.
tell you a story. My entire life, I've been an IT consultant. And I've done a lot of that involved a lot of disaster recovery where systems were blown all to hell and I had to fix them, and bad networks and crashes and virus infestations and everything. I loved going into environments that were destroyed and pulling them back together for two reasons. Number one, if I did it right, I was a hero. Honest to God, those people are like, oh my God, you were the greatest guy ever. And secondly, now it just went out of my head. Now, secondly, you never want to go into a situation where everything works well because all you can do is screw it up. If you're given a situation where everything is falling apart and you make it better, people will recognize that you have made it better and they will go, hey, that guy can make things better. And then they want you to stick around, and in my case, they pay you more, which was always a good thing. But
right.
I think is he up against the wall? Yeah, it's going to be pretty tough, especially get the defense going. But if he does, then it's even if he doesn't last in Nebraska, somebody else is going to be going, hey, how about you come coach our program? And here's $5 million a year. So I think Mickey Joseph is going to come out of this winning no matter what.
Oh,
Hopefully
for sure.
for us.
I mean, he's way too talented to not. I mean, I'm not concerned about his future, whether he stays with us or not. I think a lot of Husker fans are wanting Mickey just because we know how much talent that guy has. Maybe not as a head coach, but like just as one of your other callers mentioned, like we're really hoping that if they do bring in somebody else, like, can we please keep him? Because his recruiting is got to be one of the top in the nation, And so like to not have possibly lose that is like, it would suck. So yeah, I think that's why I think so many of us are pulling. I even see in the chat, like, why, people are saying, why are we so desperate to have an ex-player be a head coach? I don't know that it's necessarily that. I just think Mickey's energy, I think his ability to really like win the hearts of his players. Because, even when Tom Osborne era, like the players said they would run through a brick wall for him, and so it's like that kind of leadership is, I think, what helps to take, and develop players because they start playing not just with their talent, but they start playing with their heart. So I think that's why so many of us want Mickey. I just feel like he's really, I mean, his back is against the wall for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Last comment before I go. Can we get like all of the Corn Crazed and Corn Nation fans together and get a petition to get Matt Campbell off the list of potential hires?
I don't think Matt Campbell. I don't think he's a bad option. Listen. Matt Campbell, if he has a successful year this year, which means at Iowa State, 8 wins. If he can get to 8 wins at Iowa State again this year, you got to respect what he's built there. That is a bottom feeder program. Bottom feeder. And we don't look at it as a bottom feeder anymore. Do you know why? Because of him. Maybe a little bit because of Gene Chizik as well. But really, Matt Campbell has done a fantastic job building them back up from the freaking gutter. Got to give him some respect there. Maybe you don't like him because he's not flashy, a little bit basic, hasn't done anything major, but he's been at Toledo and now Iowa State. I mean, give him the keys to a Ferrari, see what he can do then. There's a reason the NFL was calling. That's all I'm going to say. There's a reason the NFL wanted him. And if the NFL wanted him, are you going to say Nebraska's too good for him? Because I've been in your same spot and I was like, ugh, God, that sounds so bland, dull, unsalted food. But he's done something there.
I think it's like when you look at statistically, like I agree with you. Iowa State, wow. Like even to have a winning season with them is respectable. Like I respect that. But I think it's like when you look at the statistics, it's like, man, as a fan, and I think all the people in chat can agree, like to bring on a new coach and that has like kind of like a mediocre win streak, it just feels like Riley era all over again, and I just don't know if I can handle another hire like that. So
yeah, no, I get it. Trust me, but I don't think he's a Mike Riley by any means. He is nowhere near Mike Riley.
No, he can beat Iowa.
Exactly.
Oh man, to be an Iowa fan this year and watch your offense make field goals and your defense make safeties, that's got to be.
Well, they'll score 48 points against Nebraska. Haha,
No.
joke.
Wow.
Joke. That's a joke.
Wow.
All right,
That's
guys,
a joke.
Denon has to get out of here soon, so we're going to take one more caller.
All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate
Thank
the
you
time.
for coming on, Nick. We'll talk to you in a little bit.
Yeah, I apologize,
So I've
everybody.
got time for one. Hey, it's all good. I got to get out of here too. My whole entire day has been from midnight to 4 a.m. working on my Oklahoma preview video. From 4:30 a.m. until 8:30 a.m. it was sleeping. Then I had to get on a plane and come out here. I'm currently at my dad's house in Oklahoma. That's why there is no setup. If you guys didn't watch my preview video, I'm at Oklahoma tonight. Tomorrow we drive up 5.5, 6 hours to Lincoln. Going to be there for the next 2 days. Then back to Oklahoma and fly home back to California on Sunday. So we're making it work. This has been a really good show. We're all actually remote, minus John. You can see Dennon's over there in Atlanta. But guys, thank you for dealing with us with the less professional setup today. I know you guys like my bedroom setting. I'm going to bring in our final.
I came down to where the winning football's played.
Oh,
Georgia.
South. I like it.
Just kidding. The closest
all
college
right,
team to here is Georgia Tech, and
they're very mediocre at best. All right, guys, we're on to our last caller. So, Zach, can you hear me? You are muted.
Yes, I can hear you.
How you doing, Zach?
Good. How are you?
Doing great.
All right. Well, I just want to start and say I'm a huge fan. Watch all your videos. But
of me or John?
You.
Okay. Well, I would hope you watch John too. If you watch me, you got to watch John.
No, I also watch John too.
Yeah.
Don't worry. But I just wanted to say one. I was in the student section, and I was born in 2001, not 2004.
Okay.
But I will say I started booing during the game. I mean, it's like I'm a diehard Husker fan. I've been to a game since I was probably 5 years old. And I mean, I've seen the Sioux days. But I think you look at this year, and it's just disappointing with all the hype we had. I was expecting. My prediction was 8-4. I think yours was what, 9-3.
No, mine was 8-4.
8-4 too. Okay, but I mean, I was expecting to win these games, and Georgia Southern, like, how do you lose to Georgia? I don't know.
Hey, I understand. You don't need to justify why you booed. I get it.
Well, I mean, you guys were talking about that earlier, so I just wanted to clarify. That's not because I am a bad Nebraska fan or I don't like Nebraska. I love Nebraska, but
no, don't think that anybody's a bad Nebraska fan for booing. And I think whoever was asking that was more so just trying to understand what's changed with the fans today as to the ones in the past. I just think the culture's changed. There were a lot of people with you booing. It wasn't you by yourself. I can guarantee that.
No, I think people are just fed up.
And I get it. If you're fed up, I totally understand.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Okay, then the other thing I want to talk about.
Wait a minute.
What are your thoughts?
This was a.
What?
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. The other thing I was gonna ask was, what are your thoughts on Ndamukong Suh coming in as a D-line coach? I don't know if his tweets were as a joke or if he's being serious, but what are your thoughts on that?
I think he still has an NFL career. I mean, I live in Minnesota. I am not a Vikings fan. I am a Green Bay Packers fan. But when I look at the Vikings this year, they look like a really good team. If they can protect Kirk Cousins, they're going to go far. And if Ndamukong Suh joined that team, wow. I think that they would be that much better and would put them over the top, and they'd win their division, and God knows where they go. So I think Ndamukong Suh is still looking to have an NFL career. Would he be a good coach? He's tweeted a lot about finances and how he wants to help people understand, get ahead in life and things like that. And I think after his NFL career, he's going to go and take his money and his fame and hopefully help people be better versions of themselves. Is that coaching at Nebraska? Doubtful, because you normally have to start, as a lowly grad assistant and eat grits for 10 years and, go through all this stuff. And I think, what we've seen is that a great player doesn't make a great coach. So, I would hope that Suh, he has such a personality, and I think he's such an amazing person, unless he's not on your team, that I would hope that he makes his presence around in Nebraska in other ways.
I have a different take than John. I think if you could get Suh to be your defensive line coach, you say screw it, and that's a guy like Urban Meyer. It's an automatic. You bring him in with no questions asked. There's no resume outside of playing resume. Screw it. We bring that guy here. He know what it takes to be elite. He's going to instill a certain mindset in these guys. It might be the mindset that you step on guys' hands or kick them in the head with. I don't know what his deal is. Suh is an animal, and he's going to make these guys fight harder than any of these previous D-line coaches have made them fight. Maybe he won't be as complete of a coach as Tuioti was, but maybe he can build in that role here if you have an elite defensive coordinator to guide him and pull him along, right? You don't need to have an elite position coach to be an elite team, right? You got to have some elite mentorship from the top, and I think if you do have the top guys, they'll be able to trickle down and make sure their staff is really good. And a good example of this is Nick Saban at Alabama. He has the Nick Saban School of Rehabilitation for all of these screwed up coaches. Bill O'Brien is a failure, goes to Alabama. He is now going to be a big-time college football head coach as a potential for Nebraska. Steve Sarkisian was a drunk, a mess, a loser in life. He goes to Alabama, gets his whole career fixed, and almost beats Bama with his backup quarterback running around on a broken foot last week. Okay? Scott Frost will be his next. Lane Kiffin has already been there, and I'm sure there are dozens more who I'm not even thinking about. And Ndamukong Suh could absolutely come here and play for a coach who is elite above him and guiding him along the way. He's going to instill that mentality. He's going to make sure guys run through a wall. And right now, that's what we need. We need the positive energy. We need the handshakes. We need the hugs. We need the proof that someone there loves you. And Ndamukong Suh is going to love his players. There's no way he's out here tweeting, you need a coach, unless he actually wanted to do it. So if there was a chance, bring him on. I'm ready for it. But thank you for coming on, Zach. I appreciate it, and hopefully we have you again.
Yep. Thank you.
All right, John, I think that was a fantastic show. I know you've got to go record your podcast. Dennon's got to get out of here.
Well,
and obviously I'm going to take a shower.
We'll be doing it live on YouTube. Because I've convinced those guys. We use Restream so we can pull in chat, But
okay.
Dr. Offense Ross Reuter is going to, 30 minutes. 8:30.
Guys, 8:30, John has his live stream podcast on. I won't be there, but John will be there with his guys. They'll be talking doing whatever they're talking about tonight. I didn't check in on it, but he's telling me now. So if you want to watch more content tonight, you can go to John's channel. That's at Corn Nation. If you're subscribed to Corn Crazed, you got to be subscribed to Corn Nation. I mean, corn is in the name. We just love corn here. But look, I don't have a lot of respect for a lot of YouTube channels because I think a lot of YouTube channels hijack each other's content. They're not very friendly. They're in competition with each other for no reason. They don't want to collaborate because ego. I don't know. But what I do know is John has been respectful. He's been super cool. He's reached out to me ever since I had like 2,000 subscribers or 3,000 subscribers. He's been here since the beginning. So, John, I want to say thank you very much because you've been an OG in this game for a long time. I'm just a dude in my bedroom talking BS about Nebraska football with a few guys who kind of think the same way as I do on YouTube. So thanks for giving me a chance. Thanks for coming on the show and BSing with us because we love having you here.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
But all right,
you guys take care and thanks for having me.
All right, we'll talk to you soon, John. All right, guys. Okay. I will be at the game this weekend. So if you see me, I want you to say what's up. Of course, I want you to say what's up. I mean, I've met 3 or 4 or 5 people in person who follow the channel. Never in Nebraska. Met somebody at my grocery store in LA who ran up on me. Met somebody in Arizona, 2 people in Arizona. Met somebody in Florida, and I think I met one person in Oklahoma. Yeah, I met one person in Oklahoma. So if you see me, say what's up. I love meeting you guys because I got to put a face to all these names in the chat. We got so many different names. I got to know who you are. So I will be making some content probably Sunday. I don't know what my content schedule is going to be. I'm not even going to put a deadline on it. I know for sure I'm home Monday night. Maybe I'll get something out after the game on Saturday. But, I got some videos up for you to watch now. So it is what it is. I'm going to enjoy myself this weekend. Win or lose, it's going to be a massive game. It's going to be a lot of fun because we've got so much history with Oklahoma. Man, just appreciate the moment. I'm telling you, we might not ever see this situation again where we play Oklahoma in the regular season. It might be a national championship matchup or a playoff matchup only in some random stadium somewhere around the country. So just be happy we get to take on Oklahoma one more time in Lincoln because these super conferences, I'm telling you, are going to really shake some things up. I saw today Oklahoma is already canceling 3 non-conference games in 2024 and 2025 because they don't know how the super conference realignment is going to mess things up. So enjoy it while you got it, because this is a 100+ year rivalry. Anyway, thank you guys for being here, and I'm going to see you in the next one. Go Big Red.